This image is about the layer mask tutorial. Now, we have had previous videos that cover all the tools that you will need for this project. So I recommend that you go back and make sure to review those tools, and I'll mention them as I go through. But if you're still having trouble, this video is a step-by-step of how to go through the project. The first thing you want to do is actually download those images that I provided and save them to your desktop so you can find them. I have them here. I'm going to open them with Adobe Photoshop, and I just right-clicked. I selected all images and then I right-clicked and said Adobe. Now I have my preferences right now set to open all images in Camera Raw, and you can tell by this panel. Sometimes I turn that off in the preferences, and all I need to do is select all these images in the thumbnail, because I don't want to work in Camera Raw here. I want to work in Photoshop proper. And then I click open, and that will open all 3 images in Photoshop. And right now they are tabbed. I actually, if I'm going to composite images, like to arrange the workspace by saying float all in windows. What that does is basically untabs those images, so you can retab them if you want, but they're now free floating. And what I'm going to do is take the Hallway by John Davola as my first image, and then I will click on The Woman by Joanne Callis. And by the way, it's a very different thing to bring the image in when it's open versus going from the thumbnail of a closed image and dragging and dropping that in. I don't want you to do that yet. That would create what's called a smart object, and that's something we'll cover a bit in the future, and it's a little more complicated because that becomes just a placeholder. So what you really want to do is have your image open and click on it, and then rather than drag the picture in, I like to drag the thumbnail in. This is a habit that I try and instill in my students, because what that does is make you really assess how many layers you're dragging if there's multiple layers. So what you want to do is get the Move tool. The shortcut for that is V. And I'm going to use the Move tool and drag the icon from that Joanne Callis image. And also, one thing you could do is hold down the Shift key if you want to place that right in the middle, so you don't have to do any adjusting. And if you look at my layers over here, now I have 2 layers. So I can close this image because I have the other 2 stacked on top of each other. Here's the hallway. Here's the woman. Okay, this one, if you want to just bring them all in at the same time, that's fine. So if I click on that, then I'll drag the icon and also drop that. So then I can close that. That gives me kind of a clean working space. So I have all 3 images placed together. For now, I'm going to turn off the Edward Muybridge Walking Man, and I'm just going to deal with these 2 images. So if you look at my sample, you will see, in fact, let's open that up for a second here, just so you can look at it. Okay, you'll see that there's a kind of hazy look to this lamp. Don't worry too much about what's going on down here. There's not a really good defined armrest. And then, of course, the most important part here is to tuck this Marching Men image behind the couch or chair with a kind of soft, transparent, almost like this is a tattoo. So let's talk about how to do that. So I'm going to get rid of this. Look at this image. And by the way, you don't have to match that sample exactly. You can take some poetic license there. What I'm really interested in is that you understand the concepts and you do some pretty good detail work. So I'm going to start painting. And the first thing I need to do is make a layer mask on the woman. I'm going to get the brush. I just hit the letter B. If you look over my toolbar here, I actually have gray and white, which won't cut it. I need black and white. So if you remember from a previous video, the shortcut for that is the letter D. That brings you back to the default colors. And then don't forget that you will use X to toggle between black and white. And then I'm going to check what my brush is like. And this is so important. So the name of the game in this tutorial is brush opacity, brush hardness, and layer opacity. So if you watch the previous videos, I talked a lot about that. So I'm going to keep my brush very hard, like 98, 99. And by the way, I just hit return when I have that window. Now I'm using the bracket keys and I want to paint with black. So I'm going to hit X. And as you can see, I'm chopping away the parts I don't want it all here. Okay, we'll talk about the ghosty kind of lamp. And trust me, when you learn this tool this way, by creating transparency and softness, when we start doing retouch, that is a tool you are going to use a lot. So I like to go in really tight with a big brush. By the way, there's kind of like some flyaway hair. You can just cut that. So what I'm looking for is a really good smooth line. And I want to see you guys do the best that you can in getting a really clean cut here. You know, and you can decide if you want to leave that bit of a highlight. Okay, anyway, if I start doing this during this video, I could be here for hours. Oops. You see what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm doing this project for real. Okay, so the idea is that you cut her out as perfectly as you can and really try and not leave a lot of haze behind that on that picture. So I'm going to do all that. Now, when you get over to the lamp, the key is to do a kind of slow, low opacity, soft brush deletion. So once I get this, and by the way, you cannot do this, you know, all this really refined work unless you're way zoomed in. So I use the scroll wheel to zoom in and then make sure the brush is hard. And I might, you know, usually I use a really big brush edge, but I might do more detail work here. Right? To me, this is fun. Okay, anyway, so then when you get over here, the key thing to learn is that you want to use a low opacity. So in other words, if you're at, you know, 70, what you're going to be doing is taking away, if I paint with black, taking away 70% of the image, leaving behind 30%. So I want to go very low with this, and multiple passes will build. So if I go something like, I don't know, let's do 15. Okay, 15. And so that's very, very low. And then I'm going to go with a sort of softer brush to get that kind of ghosty look, sorry. And I'm going really big with the brush. And this is the technique you're going to use on those marching men too. Can you hear how many times I'm clicking? Those multiple soft brushes are getting rid of that edge. Sorry if you can hear my cat in the background. And so you can use your artistic license here. How much, you know, do you want to leave behind? What I don't want to see, and in fact, I'm going to bump up that opacity again here. I don't want to see this hard edge of the lamp. Okay, I'm clicking a few too many times there. Okay, so can you see that I'm leaving behind just a ghost of a lamp right there? Now, the key is to go back and get this back to 100% because I don't want to leave a fog in this hallway. So I have to come in and do a really clean job over here. Okay, so yeah, that's up to you. You know, make that look how you want. But the whole idea is to show that you understand how opacity and softness on the brush works. Okay, now let's turn on the marching men. I'm going to get the move tool. So I clicked on V. And now I've got these marching men. Now you're like, how do I get that behind there? How do I squeeze that picture in behind that chair? Well, it's going to be a total illusion. So what I do is I put a mask on, and then listen to that cat. Okay. Here's where it's a combination of two things. I'm using brush opacity and layer opacity. So the first thing I do is I'm going to turn down my layer opacity. Now that's not going to affect my brush at all. All that's going to let me do is see where this couch is. And so I get my brush. Scoop, stop it. Okay, so, oops. And I want a harder brush here. And so to make this illusion really work, you need to be very precise on how you hit. Keep in mind, I've got 100% brush here, and I am just going. Now down in here, you can't really tell because it falls into shadow. So again, but the real part of the illusion is going to be here, where you want to get that just perfect. And I'm actually going to hit X because I see a spot where I think I took away too much. So I want that a little bit tighter. Yeah, see how careful I'm being to make that transition. I want that transition to look just right there. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my opacity back up because now I saw where that fits in with the couch or chair. I don't know what this thing is. Okay, so turn that back up and see how that looks like it's going behind there. Now, I would actually fiddle with that, but I'm going to cut all these out anyway. So I want to cut because I want this to look like a tattoo on her back. So I'm cutting away the hard edge first. I got 100% brush. Notice how big I'm working here too, right? Okay, so now the fun begins because to get this to look right, I need to do the same thing I did with the lamp, which is to go with a very light brush and then a soft. So I've got low opacity. And, you know, it takes multiple passes to get that to work. And if you think it's too low, go up a little higher. And see how I'm going around the edge there to soften that edge. And then again, it doesn't have to look exactly like my sample. You know, I'm more interested in that, again, you show off your skills to of using opacity and brush hardness. So I'm just going to do some. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time, I realize. Okay, hold on. Okay, now I got kind of the shape I want. Now I go for the lighter brush, softer hardness. And this is when I can use a pretty big brush here. And just kind of make them a little ghosty. Notice I'm doing multiple clicks. That's really bad for your wrist, actually. I do too much of that. But I'm softening the edge. And so when we learn retouch, one thing that's really going to be important is this kind of ability to blend, you know, to do a soft blend on something. So I just turned that up a little more. I think I'm at 29%. It's going too slowly. Also, you may not know this, but when I'm recording a video, it's taking up a lot of RAM, and so it makes my brush go a little bit slow. So, and then even in here, I'm gonna soften that, and at the bottom it still looks like a photo. And for that, we don't want to soften this top part. I just don't want it to look so boxy. And then if you want, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could be more kind of mysterious by brushing this down. That's what I would do. I never really like doing like transparency here. It's not as interesting as doing a kind of brushy transparency like what we did with the lamp. All right, so that is the kind of look. And you know, I could play with this, like go like that, and then hit X and just bring back their faces. Like that's kind of cool. Oops, my brush should be even softer. That's weird. Okay. So anyway, hopefully this, I'm getting too into it, like I'm not even talking. Hopefully this will give you a better idea of how to do this project. And in the end, I haven't finished up here. You should have hard, very hard and precise around her shoulders and head, and then softness, sort of ghostiness around the lamp, and then a lot of ghostiness around the walking man. Okay, in the end, what you'll do is you'll right click, you'll flatten the image, and then for ease of turning in, do a save as, save it on your desktop. That's the easiest, and save it as a JPEG. That's it for the layer mask tutorial, and sorry about the cat meows.